your general reaction to yesterday's news about President Trump and then today's reaction from him, his press conference.
None of it was really a surprise. The I, I don't think anybody expected anything different. I don't think anybody, let me start that. I don't think anybody expected anything different than what the verdict was yesterday. If you've been following the media or following this story at all, um, with the knowledge of where the case was held and how the judge was reacting to it, it seemed like a foregone conclusion. Trump's press conference today, he chose his words very carefully. He's been complaining about rigged decisions for a couple of years now. This dovetails right in with his messaging. He's casting himself as the underdog, that this is the first time ever that a leading political candidate has been attacked by the judicial system, and he's having, from what I hear, record fundraising since then. So I think the end result is a further polarization of a polarized election. I think the end result is people who have retreated to their side are going to be more passionately there. I don't know how much this is going to affect any votes in the fall, but it seems that if anybody was kind of wavering one way or the other, this is going to force them to go to one side or the other pretty quickly.
Yeah, and talking about that, especially here in our neck of the woods, Jen Kiggins' district. Again, you don't think that this is going to move maybe some of those independents, some of those people who are on the edge, one way or the other?
Well, the one way I think it will have an impact is I think for the Democrats, this is a stop the bleeding moment. Because if you looked at the polling for the past couple of weeks and the past couple of months, some Democrat-based voters have been leaving Biden. They haven't necessarily all moved over to the Trump side, but when you poll young people or certain minority groups, Biden was getting lower numbers among them than any Democrat presidential candidate in decades. And I think this is going to put a little bit of a speed bump on that and tell those people that were thinking of leaving their Democratic Party base, don't go so fast. Joe Biden might not be doing everything that you want, but look what the alternative is. So that's why I think anybody who's in the middle or anybody who was leaning Democrat that was unhappy with the economy or unhappy with Joe Biden had some reason to say maybe Joe Biden's not my pick. This will probably encourage them to go back home.
And I understand it's a political framing. You know, you, Governor Youngkin, um, Congresswoman Kiggins, those most of the GOP said we're with Trump. We've endorsed Trump. At this point, we're pretty much sticking with them. But the talking point, and what you had said earlier, is, you know, this is a rigged system. You know, it's the court was unfair against, you know, political hunt, basic witch hunt. Um, but this was a 12-member, you know, independent jury that they could have decided, hey, we don't want these people on the jury, and they did that. Some of the people were taken off. I mean, one of the people who voted to convict was a Truth Social user who said, I use Truth Social and X, which tends to lean conservative. Do you think that this is, you know, inappropriate for some of these people, especially when you consider the Attorney General, Jason Yaris, was on there saying this is a rig type of thing. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but could you just maybe go into a little bit more about that and some of the political messaging involved here?
Well, be fair, both sides. I've looked at the Democrats' response to this too, and they're lockstep in their rhetoric too. Their talking points are unilaterally, no one is above the law. I mean, if you just did a Twitter search on that phrase, you'd see half the elected officials that are Democrats in the country using that phrase. So both sides, as I said, are going into their polarized corners as far as the talking points. I think Trump probably has used the word rigged more than anyone on the planet in the past 4 years. He's been doing it since 2020. Shouldn't surprise anybody that he's taking that tact. But the fact is, this was a prosecutor who was a get Trump prosecutor. The judge, by any estimation, we didn't see it. This isn't the OJ trial, and people said things about the OJ jurors too. So this is not exactly new in America. But the jury pool was definitely from an area of that city that Donald Trump hardly got a vote from in 2020. I think he was in the single digits there. So he does. That's why they asked for a change of venue. So I think the Republican talking point of, look, fair is fair. I didn't have a fair shot, and they were going to convict me no matter what the evidence was and no matter what defense I put on. I think it's pretty effective, but we'll see what the next steps are. We in Virginia have a little bit of a head start on this because we had our own political trial of Governor Bob McDonnell, who was convicted by a jury and was upheld on appeal, and a unanimous Supreme Court throughout the prosecution, throughout the conviction. So in Virginia, we have a nice glance at this because we've been through this before. We've been through, the convictions that got overturned and overturned harshly. And I think the fair thing would be to let the process play out. But in the final 24 hours, when everybody on each side is trying to raise money off of hot rhetoric, the rigged trial seems to be the Republicans' point. And for the Democrats to be championing the rule of law and supporting a conviction, it's an odd tact for them to take. It's an odd tact for them to say, given their record. But I think both sides are trying to make hay.
And going forward, you were saying this, you do think this is going to bring people more into their camps. Just as far as an overall, like we have a long way to go until November. I was just talking to Joel Rubin about, he was saying that, there's a lot of different things. We have the Republican and Democratic National Convention until then. Where do you see this in just the overall landscape of the 2024 election?
Just, you mean of other races on the ballot?
Well, just this conviction in the grand scheme of the presidential race, and how that could also trickle down to.
I think by the time anybody casts a vote, as early as September here in Virginia and elsewhere, I think this is going to be a distant memory. We are going to get a rev up with the talk of the sentencing being scheduled a few days before the Republican National Convention. I don't think that was coincidental. So I think both sides are going to try to use this to for Democrats to convince Democrat leaners to stay and not cross over, and for Trump to cry victim and try to put this past him, assuring the world that once this is appealed by a fair appeals process, that it'll be history like it was with McDonnell.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to share? I know it's about lunchtime before you say.
No, I think this is more fire for a campaign that's already full of flames on both sides. The passion approaching this election was already at a fever pitch, and these are additional logs on the fire. I don't think there's going to be many undecideds by the time we get through July, definitely through August. Most fall campaigns are focusing on those undecided voters. For one of the first times in my political history, this may be one where there isn't any, that these races will be decided long before the votes can be kept, the first votes are cast.
People kind of have an idea at this point of who each person is.
I think it even, and if you look at social media, people who are saying, even Republicans who say, I was going to vote for Trump, but I wasn't going to be thrilled about it. I kind of wanted DeSantis or Nikki Haley, and now they're all, I'm gonna vote for Trump, and no one can stop me from it, and we've got to put a stop to this. So, and the Democrats are fired up on the same way. So it turned up the temperature, and is really, this is going to be a base election. And we don't see many base elections at the presidential election, but I think this one is going to be.